Hi guys, welcome back to module 2, all about nutrition and sustainable healthy eating habits. And this is lesson 2, where we are going to be talking about eating for fuel and not emotion. So this has 2 parts, and I'll start off with talking a little bit about eating for fuel. What that means is basically eating the calories, the energy that your body needs to survive and thrive in the day-to-day and not more. And if weight loss is a goal of yours, figuring out what that is so you can determine what is the energy, the calories that you want to consume combined with the other practices that we're going to talk about to get yourself to the goal that you want in a sustainable, healthy way. So let's start off with talking about how we can figure out the amount of fuel, the amount of calories that you need for your body. Now, there are 2 ways that you can go, 2 ways that I recommend going about doing this, 2 fairly easy ways. One of them would be keeping a 3-day or week-long food log where you are being completely honest with every single drink and food you are putting in your body. We want this to be an accurate representation of your life. So if it's a weekend, you're going on a trip, whatever it is, document everything because it's a data point. That is the only way that we can evaluate what changes we need to make and what you might need to do going forward is to figure out where you are and what is literally creating the weight that your body is at right now. So in the resources section in the files below this video and to the right, I have included a food log, which I encourage you to document every single thing that you're eating and drinking and also how you're feeling before, during, and after. Because that plays into the second piece that we're going to talk about in just a second. So that is one way of doing it. The second way of doing it is you can go to an online calorie calculator, which I will link below. I am not all about counting calories, by the way. Like most of my clients that I work with for weight loss, we do not count calories on a day-to-day basis or ongoing. I do think it's a really, really helpful data point to just gauge what we are putting in our body, not just for energy and calorie purposes, but also when it comes to macronutrients, like how much fat are we eating? How much protein are we eating? How much carbohydrates? How much fiber are we getting in a day? Because all of those things are really important, as I'll dive into more in lesson 3, but it gives us a really accurate representation of what are we consuming in the day-to-day. And the other thing that I'll mention is every single time I have a client doing this is they are shocked with like awareness, like almost like, oh my gosh, I did not realize every day at 2 o'clock I had this, or every day at 5 o'clock I was eating this. I didn't realize I was snacking every single night, or like how much I was snacking. This is a really, really helpful tool for that. So again, just to recap, the first way is to do a 3-day food log and just see what are you consuming that's getting you the results that you are. And second is going to be looking up an online calorie calculator and seeing like, okay, what is that saying? It's just a reference point. Doesn't mean we have to go off of that. But what is it saying for your current weight and your current body type and activity level that like a maintenance calorie level should be? And then we'd want to compare the 2. Like, where does it look like you're falling just based on these data points? Now, these are not completely accurate. Everyone is super individual and there's customization that's required there, but it gives you a kind of a fairly somewhat accurate representation of like, where do we go from here? And then we can work on the other points I'm going to talk about. And again, I did include a food log in the resources section, and I will link some of those places you can go below where you can actually track so you can see what you are consuming and some links for like calorie calculators. I don't even like talking about calorie calculators because that's so not like what I preach and practice in a day-to-day. However, I think it's really, really helpful as a data point. So I want to be really clear on that. The second part of eating for fuel and not emotion is what I had mentioned earlier, is we are the majority of the time eating for exactly that, for fuel and not for emotion. So not emotionally, not mindlessly, and not overeating. Most of us know when we are overeating. We know when we have had a meal or we have had a snack or we have had the portion we've decided, but we're continuing to go for like another reason. And a lot of times it's because we don't know how to stop ourselves. We don't know how to do what I've heard mentioned before called plate pushes, where you literally push your plate away, you don't have any more. So those are the things, that second segment of it. If you truly do remove those things, most of us would very easily go to the weight where we are the healthiest and feel our best if we remove those things and then work in these other elements. Most of the clients I work with, that is how they get to their weight and are able to maintain it because they're able to do that. So that's why those things are so important as well. So let's talk a little bit about each of those. So, and I've also included resources for you in the file section here to actually apply. I included some mindful eating tips, a stop overeating checklist, as well as 3-day food log that I mentioned before. Okay, so let's talk about emotional eating. What is emotional eating? The way I like to define it is based on other definitions that I found is eating to create or avoid or distract from or numb out an emotion. Many of us do this, and I believe that for a lot of us, it comes from childhood because literally when we're babies, when a baby cries, we give it a bottle. When a child is 2 and they're leaving doctor's appointment and they're crying because they had a shot, we give them a sucker. When we're at a birthday party and we're celebrating, we have cake and pizza and all the food. Big holidays, we eat a lot of food. So like we, from a young age, associate food, usually foods that aren't fueling us, with like certain emotions, certain strong emotions. So obviously, as adults, we're going to too. Totally fine. The problem comes in, whereas we talked about before with mindset, we're not questioning if we still want to be relating and connecting the two automatically. So what can we do now if we think that that may be a challenge for us or we want to explore if it is? Well, number one goes back to what I talked about before is tracking what you are eating and why. And you will start to notice some patterns that maybe if you're not hungry and you're eating instead, why? So that's the first piece is we want to start looking at what we're eating and why we're eating it. And that is where you will be able to reference my mindful eating tips. One of your actions is going to be to go through those and start to watch what you're putting in your mouth and ask yourselves the questions, what, why am I eating this? And do I like my reason? And does it align with my goals? So if you find that you're emotionally eating, you want to start explore, what are you really trying to solve for there? Is it an emotion that you don't want to sit with? Is it something that you want to create? We want to really get to the root of that and then solve for the root. The second thing is we may be overeating, which means we're just eating more than like we plan to, more than our body needs. And again, it's going to be the same practice to figure out what is happening there. First, we have to have an idea of what is just regular eating. And then we have to figure out why are we going for more food? What is happening in our brain? What are we thinking? What are we feeling that is driving that action of having more food? And you can reference my stop overeating checklist to when you get to those moments where you are finding yourself eating more than you know that your body needs or that you actually intended or planned to. And then the last thing is we want to eliminate our mindless eating. And mindless eating is eating without our mind present. It's basically when you're in situations and you're consuming food, but it's not intentional. And most of the time, we're not even enjoying it because it's not intentional. So the way that you can start to identify this and eliminate it is to watch for it, is to practice those mindful eating tips that I have included and go through all of those. You're going to go through your day. You're going to watch what you're eating and you're going to start to question, why did I eat that? Do I like my reason? And does it align with not only who I want to be, but what results I want to create? So that is the two components of eating for fuel. It is figuring out what does your body actually need to survive and thrive in the day-to-day and to reach your goals. And second is going to be looking at where are we emotionally eating, where are we overeating, where are we mindless eating, and exploring why are we doing it, going back to that mindset piece I talked about earlier. What are we thinking? What are we feeling that's actually driving it? And how can we solve for the root causes of those things versus the symptoms? All right, so definitely check out the resources that I've provided. Please do the action steps that I have mentioned here in this video, and I will see you in lesson 30.